You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC head to the Sunshine State to take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Can Rhode Island find a way to unseat the current Eastern Conference leaders in their own home? And what does that say match-wise about not just the future of a playoff match, but possibly everything else going on to the end of this season? I'm your host, Matt Entrican. Joining me as co-host Jason Carey. And buckle up because we're going to have a fun show tonight. Jason Carey, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing fantastic. Looking forward to this weekend. It's a big matchup.
It's a big matchup for the team. A lot of things going on at Centerville Bank Stadium with Island Roads Festival. I've been hearing that there's now going to be boats in the water trying to emulate the Newport folk and jazz festivals, trying to bring the whole area alive. Really exciting stuff to see there. And yeah, so let's get right into this, bringing up Team of the Week action for Week 23. Frank Nodarce, of course, named to the USL Championship Week 23 Team of the Week. It's kind of really interesting when you look at this. I mean, not only was he announced and celebrated as a defender on this team, JJ Williams, of course, also getting a nod. But the crazy thing, Jason, is that it's like we only ever see these two names. It's like it's either Frank Nodarce, it's JJ Williams, and then every once in a while sprinkle in a Jose Quizera for flavor and for fun. And these three players continuing to make a effort, a mark, and a indelible space in our hearts on how good they are, not just for Rhode Island FC, but also the USL Championship as a whole.
Yeah, so it just means I think a lot of the rest of the team at times they're maybe a bit of unsung heroes. They're kind of doing the dirty work, the Marky Bars, if you will, the garbage men who are kind of cleaning up.
You're saying that these three are glory hounds and that everyone else is just a Marky Barra waiting to go and do an assistant director, sporting coach role at UNLV. Okay, I got you.
But yeah, so this selection here actually marks the fourth weekly honor of the 2026 season for Nodarce and Williams, tying the team lead. The honor is the seventh of Nodarce's RIFC career and the club leading 11th of Williams' RIFC career. The pair represent the 13th and 14th Rhode Island FC selections to the league's best 11 through week 23.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Last week we talked about potential Defiance Player of the Year. You had said Williams has to at least be looked at because of what he's doing stats-wise. You champion Hugo Bacharach. You also said Jose Quizera could be a contender for that. Is there a space, is there a world where Frank Nodarce gets on that ballot sheet? Because of not just what we've seen him do, but also what the USL Championship is recognizing?
There's a possibility, but the reality is defenders have a very hard uphill battle, right? He's going to have to get a lot more of these nominations so that everyone keeps thinking about him. Sometimes the reality is, like I just mentioned, the defenders a lot of times have to do the dirty work and they don't get the glory because they're not the ones scoring the goals or getting the assists. But if he's making Team of the Week every other week, he's definitely going to have to be added to that conversation.
So he just needs to get back to 2024, score 6 headers from set pieces at a minimum, and then he'll be in contention.
I mean, it couldn't hurt.
Well, you love to see it. I'll be curious, if other players start to make a name for themselves, especially with some of the new players that have joined the squad. We're going to talk about that in depth with a player that everyone has been waiting to see get onto this squad. But moving on, talking about the Rhode Island Lights Festival, and let's not confuse that with the Island Roads Festival happening this weekend. These are two completely separate things, but Centerville Bank Stadium now to host their first ever Rhode Island Lights Festival. Jason, walk listeners through what that experience is going to look like.
Yeah, so Centerville Bank Stadium announced the launch of the Rhode Island Lights Festival, an all-new holiday attraction that will transform the stadium into a magical winter destination from November 27th, 2026 through January 3rd, 2027. The immersive experience will be open nightly from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., excluding December 24th and 25th.
So I've talked to General Manager Paul Byrne several times, and one of the biggest things he has wanted to accomplish at Centerville Bank Stadium is getting an ice rink, an open-air ice rink on to that stadium ground. I assume it would be on the pitch. I don't know where else you would put that. You're not putting that in the parking lot and leaving it hard to, protect and maintain. Curious your thoughts. I think of Roger Williams Zoo. They do their own version of this. There's LaSalle up the road. There's lots of different organizations that have a light festival. Is this an add-on, or is this a takeaway from other organizations that already do this kind of stuff within Rhode Island and the greater area?
No, I mean, I think you have different pockets of communities. And so, like, if we look at this as for something for Pawtucket and not necessarily the entire state of Rhode Island, I also like the idea of trying things, right? This is still a brand new stadium. Let's try different types of events and see what sticks to kind of just throwing the spaghetti at the wall and just kind of figuring out what's going to work here. So I don't hate this. I think it's a good idea.
It's a great icebreaker.
Yeah. I think they'll continue to try more and more events to see what works, to make sure that this stadium is not just a soccer stadium.
Sure. I'm still waiting. Again, we know Brett, Dan, and all the ownership group. Listen, I'm still waiting for the RIFC pumpkin for the spooktacular that goes on at Roger Williams. Every year I keep saying, don't forget to do that. I don't know if that's already needed to have been submitted by now, because we're coming pretty quickly onto that event. But things like this will continue to grow roots and turn what some of the naysayers who don't even look at it as a soccer specific stadium for the purpose of soccer into a multi-purpose venue, which is what the vision has been all along. It may be RIFC's home, but there are other things that are going to go on, like, Jason, the Island Roads Festival that will happen this weekend. Can't wait to see people there. Got to move on. I got this question in the inbox. I saw it on the Discord as well. I wasn't going to talk about it, but some people did. So did you see the controversy of the fact that a new interim president was announced, but not announced, but announced for Rhode Island FC?
Yeah, so I saw some scuttlebutt online this past weekend or so, people doing some digging, finding random names on websites.
Kawhi Leonard is your new interim president ever. I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, so there's been a name that's been floating around. People have been asking me, and that name is Declan Bolger. He has been listed as the interim president of Rhode Island FC. Some people concerned, some people confused. Has he replaced Sean Carey? Why have we gone from one interim president to another interim president? So let's just set the record straight with what we know. Declan Bolger has been with the organization for quite a while. In fact, I'm convinced I accidentally ran into him. I just can't remember the face of the person I had the conversation with, probably like 3 months ago. But he's been with the organization now for an extended period of time, probably up around the time that David Peart left the team. And he's there to support the club in a consultant and leadership way that's beyond what Sean Carey offers. So think more like the financial arm of things, making sure investors are happy, making sure businesses and other things that maybe Sean Carey is really good at the day-to-day of keeping the team going the direction it needs, the operational side of it, the partnership with the stadium, the connection to the technical staff, and the soccer team itself. So it's not even like a split duty. Sean Carey very much has been the face. Declan Bolger there supporting in a different type of role, but kind of doing those levels of work that a president might need to be offering. So, everyone's saying, is this the new face of Rhode Island FC? From the conversations I've had with leadership around the club, that maybe that comes to pass, but they are still looking for the right candidate. So I wouldn't say to anyone that, behold your new leader. I still think that Rhode Island FC is very much in the hunt for someone that's the right fit for what they want forward. And Jason, I've heard that maybe that person isn't necessarily soccer focused. Maybe they're more business savvy, more focused on brand building, relationship building within the community, and growing Rhode Island FC to the place that it deserves in the mantle of soccer within North America. So very much still everything at play. No one has lost their job. No one has gotten the job. And this is just another name helping support Rhode Island FC's operations right now.
Yeah, and I think to remind listeners, Sean Carey also has, other responsibilities with the club. He's the one kind of building that kind of talent pipeline for the team. So,
I can't wait to see when someone says, did we lose out on Cal Jennings to Sacramento because Sean Carey was split too many ways to do his job.
We need the domino meme.
Yeah, you never know. And then in other news, moving on really quickly, Nick Scardina engaged posts on Instagram showing him popping the question to his now fiance down in Newport. Jason, we're gonna have to start an engagement count, but I think that's got to be well north of 12 engagements from Rhode Island FC players across all 3 seasons. They all just, I mean, they're all in love normally when they bring their partners to Rhode Island, but they see Rhode Island, they start committing. They're like, this is my forever, even if maybe in a couple years time they're not living in Rhode Island. Rhode Island's got some secret sauce to it that's making them fall even more in love.
It's the magic of the Ocean State.
So let's get into the real things here around the league standings and the head-to-head. Jason, did we move anywhere from the win last week? All the midweek games were Prinks Tires Cup matches. Did anything happen, or are we right exactly where we were as of last Monday's show?
Yeah, so we're heading into the weekend here, still in 6th place. Like you said, the midweek matches here were some Prinks Cup brought to you by Jägermeister, so they didn't affect any of the league standings. So that keeps RIFC in their position, still on a 7-4-6 record here. As we start to look ahead to the weekend here against our opponent, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, we've played 5 matches against them so far in our history. Won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1. That single loss actually was the very first meeting against them, where we was at Jackson Lee to
Chico, yeah.
That got us one ahead, but then
the wheels came off.
Yeah, the wheels kind of came off.
Was that our first loss ever in club history as well?
Honestly, I think it might have been
because we had 3 games. It was Monterey we drew, we drew that game. We also drew New Mexico. The New Mexico game. Fun fact about the New Mexico game we're going to bring up in a second. Someone challenged some of our knowledge here, but I think that was the very first loss ever in club history. Damn. So we've won the overall war. They may have just won the opening battle of this series so far. Do we feel like we're going to be able to take that into this game this weekend?
It's possible. And then so when we continue on through the rest of the street, we went 3 wins unanswered until the most recent. The only draw actually came earlier on in this season. So far that's 4 matches unbeaten against them.
And a 5-0 beating at that too. That was our goals galore last season as well. For fan appreciation, you'd love to see those kinds of stats.
Absolutely. So if you look at it that way, to a certain extent, we have their number. But I think this is maybe the best Tampa Bay team I think we've seen since we've been in the league. So
hearing a lot of comparisons to the early 2020s when they were top dogs facing off against Lou in almost every conference final. But we've got to go to break, and when we return, we're going to break down all things Rhode Island FC in the match ahead this weekend. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. Powering 990 WBOB, that's sproutcoworking.com.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
All right, getting right into RIFC's form here in the last 5 matches. Recorded 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. During those games, RIFC have outscored their opponents 5-2, and Koke has kept 3 clean sheets in that period. RIFC seems like they're finally getting into some gear here. Maybe not the scoring numbers that we would hope for, but 3 clean sheets is huge.
I mean, not even just that. Maybe the scoring production has dropped a little bit, but I look at the fixture and form for the entirety of the Eastern Conference. Only 3 teams have 3 wins somewhere in their last 5 matches. That is the Tampa Bay Rowdies, that is us, and then Detroit City FC. Every other team having only found 2 and a lot of draws, and I'm seeing a lot of losses out of the Eastern Conference as of late. So you could argue, even despite the fact that we have not been able to, daisy chain 3 wins together, we still very much are a team that's in form. We take a hiccup here, a misstep there, but we bounce back, still avoiding that ever damaging stat line, in my opinion, of getting consecutive losses. You look at a team like Indy 11 right behind us in 7th place. They have 1 point out of their last 5 matches, 4 losses back to back to back to back, and then a draw.
And I'd even argue that the 1 loss, it was 1 decision. That easily could have been a draw. And we would have been talking about a 3-2 record in the last 5, because that game did not look like anyone was actually going to score.
Agreed. Well, let's talk about the players that will be available for this match coming up this weekend. But we got to start with the players that won't be available. And that right now, as we understand it, Zach Harivo and Karifa Yao, Zach's timeline would put him about 1 to 2 more weeks before he should be back into the mix. From what I've heard from Karifa Yao, had some conversations around the club, he is knocking on the door of being able to get back into the squad. We may even see him this weekend.
Is this the longest we've ever seen Karifa Yao out? I mean, he's got to be one of the most consistent stalwarts of our team.
He would have been the first Centurion.
I mean, there's a red card here or there, but outside of that, his injuries are like he just needs 1 week off and he's good to go.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'll have to ask the club since I can't get to that stat myself. But if we do see Karifa Yao this weekend, we didn't see Amity Diop in last weekend's game-to-game decision from Kano. He didn't see the need for Diop. I wonder which defenders make the trip down. Having said that, Jason, who do we think the starting 11 will most likely be for this night?
Yeah, so taking a look at the lineup here, we're thinking Koke Vegas is going to continue to be in net here with Nick Scardina, Grant Stoneman, Frank Nodarce, and Aldair Sanchez as our back four, especially without the some unknowns with the center back health still. AST and Hugo Bacharach as your holding midfielders, with Jojea Quizera, Noah Fuson, and Yutaro Sukada as your attacking midfielders, with JJ Williams up top.
Jason, I noticed first thing, and of course mostly here, I noticed that we have not deviated from the last lineup. Is this a feeling that the job was done well enough in against Colorado Springs to keep this lineup the same? We know that Kano does tinker, but we also know that Kano can recognize the importance of keeping some stability and familiarity in the lineup. If I compare this to the last time we played Tampa Bay, the only difference is here, Diop was in the starting 11. Yao was also absent that game. So these injuries may go back for him as far back as that match, because it was Diop and Stoneman. Zach Harivo was in the squad, and then Afonso instead of Fuson. Otherwise, this team is about 85% of what we saw against them in the 1-1 draw earlier in the season. Do we think at all that this is a team that Kano rides the same hand that he got last week and keeps the team exactly as it is?
I think there's a very good chance. I think there's an argument, though. You could say we saw that Leo Alfonso and Pitti came on and made a difference. Is that because they were playing against tired legs? Is that because they were motivated to kind of fight for their spot back? It's hard to say. I think Yutaro, based upon his performance, is the only one that I'm like 100% certain of that. And then, of course, that means, he's not going to start. But
oh, no, I mean, I think we even saw when Dorsey scored his goal. Didn't he get to start the next game?
Yeah.
I don't see Kano benching Sukada at all at this point.
I know. I'm just,
I hear you. But then if that's the case, then what player between, let's just assume Fuson is the piece you could pull out of this game. So you have either the option in the central midfield, which Pitti can fill that role, or you have you really don't have a winger because Yutaro has to be on one side or the other. So I think he's going to own that left wing spot until Alfonso takes it over. Is the only other alternate that we could talk about would be Pitti Rodriguez here? Yeah,
and I think that because he made that impact, I think there's a good chance that he could make his way into the squad. But, based upon a conversation last week when I completely gave over the fact that, Noah Fuson kind of always is there. So I expect him to play whether or not he is a starter. So I think either way, this is like 99% there.
Want to ask a question. Got an interesting listener comment. It was too late to put into the Monday show, so I want to say it now before it loses the relationship to the last week's game. A listener wrote in that they thought, was it intentional by Kano to play every single available 2024 Rhode Island FC player against Colorado in that game? Of course, with the exception of Vang, who didn't start in that game. I don't think he even had an appearance in that. So, I got to ask, we don't normally see Fuson get the start, but sometimes it does happen. Do we think that was intentional as a little bit of payback for 2024? Connor would never say it was, but
yeah, he'll never agree to that. But based upon what like Yutaro said, honestly, I think that is like probably in the lore. I think that would absolutely be something that he would do. He would maybe not even tell his players that he's doing this on purpose and just know that there's a fire inside them to get and extract that revenge.
Read between the lines, if you will. Another listener reached out and commented that the number 14 kit is blessed whenever it makes its first appearance in a home game for a new player. This listener went on to comment, Mark Doyle got the goal, even though he didn't, in New Mexico United's opener at Bryant Stadium, and then Logan Dorsey earlier this year, and now Utaro getting it. The 14 seems to be blessed. Is that the case? Because I know of another player that wore it, and I don't know if this listener was paying attention at the time when they made this bold statement.
Yeah, so maybe that's in regards to attacking players, right? So Rio Hope Gund never scored for us last year, let alone in the first ever match, at Centerville Bank Stadium against San Antonio. So,
a 0-0 at that, right?
Yeah. So sometimes maybe it depends on the position.
I mean, it's still a fun comment. It was a good idea to put out. Big question on the weekend going ahead of this, Rhode Island FC getting in front of it. Would we see Asman Foyo? I can't even say his name now. I'm so worried about not saying Froyo that I almost can't say it. Will we see Foyo this weekend, Jason?
I think that he'll make an appearance on the bench, considering that he's been ready. I bet he's been training with the team, just kind of waiting for that final approval from the league. So I think he'll get some minutes. Probably not going to start, but he'll probably come on late.
Is there an argument where he should start just to disrupt whatever Don Casciota is planning as an opponent to take on this Rhode Island FC side?
Possibly. I think that would be based upon what Kano has seen of him. We can only go based upon what I've seen from his highlight reel. And while it looks impressive, it's hard sometimes to translate that, because we've seen, not just because you brought him up, like Doyle looked fantastic. And while he had moments, I think he never really broke out in this league the way we thought maybe he could. So in that regards, I always take a look at these highlight reels, take them with a grain of salt, and say, well, it looks great in this league. Well, let's give him a few games to see if it actually translates over here.
Time will tell. Hopefully we do see him in the 18-man roster for the game ahead. Want to quickly talk about some of the matchups for this squad then, and how they will either excel or maybe some concern depending on what this team will look like on game day. My big one that I thought of looking back at rewatching the previous matchup earlier in the season, I noticed that a lot of, and then also too, watching a lot of Tampa Bay this week too, more Louisville Tampa than I thought I'd ever watch in a season. Transition seems to be the big Achilles for Tampa Bay, and we'll talk about it in the next couple of segments. I feel like if that is the key to how Kano is going to attack that problem, I feel like, we look at the ability of our passing, the ability for our players to pick those passes out. If I'm thinking about a player in particular that's going to be really well suited in this match, besides JJ Williams, because when JJ is at his best, it doesn't matter the opponent. And he already found a way to score against Tampa earlier this season. There's no reason to think he can't do it again in a place he's very comfortable with. But I really think that the key in our attack this game is going to be our wingers and the way they combine with their fullbacks to catch and transition, but then overload and find that dangerous pass or that dangerous big chance opportunity. What do you see as the best composition or tactical advantages that Rhode Island's going to have in this game on the weekend?
Yeah, I think set pieces are going to be huge here. RIFC have been slowly getting better and better at them, especially after last year where it felt like we were abysmal at them. Did we ever get any chicken sandwiches last year? So I think the reality too, I think size matchup, RIFC is going to win that battle there. Maybe fans need to make a case there to see if they can get some away set piece.
Chick-fil-A could never afford it if we started getting away.
Maybe like a small fry or something.
A free soda. Okay, from a con perspective, the only thing I could think of was I was looking about where Rhode Island might be at a disadvantage in this game is probably more in terms of depth. And I don't just mean on the bench. I also mean in terms of quality on the pitch. I do think that Tampa Bay on paper and on the bench is the better team, just because when you look at who they went out to go and sign on the year, these are all players that we knew what they were as this team was announcing its acquisitions. We're like, oh yeah, this is going to be the contender in not just the Eastern Conference, but the entirety of the league.
They went out and got proven USL talent.
All of the players that are riding the bench for Tampa Bay are players that could start on any lesser USL Championship team right now. And I am not trying to curve favor to Tampa right now. It's just that's the reality. Now, Rhode Island holding their own earlier in the season is a great testament to that, but this is still a formidable team. And so I think about that. I think of the difficulty Rhode Island has had against some better teams where they still found results, but it comes at the amount of attackers that are thrown at them. Dom Cosciotto likes to throw his entire team basically into the box. So when Rhode Island moves from dealing with one or two attackers to now the wings are getting involved, they're shooting at distance. Yeah, the way that they adjust is going to be really particular in this game. And so I think a lot is going to be asked of Grant Stoneman and Frank Nodarce in this game. If they collapse centrally and Tampa attacks wide.
I mean, even throw Aldair and Nick in there too, right?
If we're suddenly pinned and we can't use those players explosively, what will their defensive mindsets look like in this game? If they stay wide, we've seen Tampa carve centrally through games. That was what kind of led to some of the problems we saw in the opening 15 minutes in our first match of the season. And again, if we stay compact and we give them range around the top of the box, we saw Cicerone, we saw Micheletto all score golazos in the last. I mean, they've got 12 goals in the last 5 games. Like, they're not afraid to shoot. It's a team where Tampa finds a way to control whatever their attack is. So from a Rhode Island perspective, I think the defense is going to be the bigger story of the night, and they might be at a slight disadvantage, but with as many clean sheets as they've had, as you said, with Koke and the direction they've gone, I'm not worried. But I think, like, if we had to tip the scales one way or another, Rhode Island's defense doesn't tip the scale more favorably than Tampa Bay's offense at this moment.
Yeah. And like, looking ahead to this match, like, I think that Boyo will get to play. And I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. I think he can be a bit of an enigma there. And I think that will kind of maybe throw a curveball, if you will, at them. He is a player from another league here. And just kind of excited to see how that happens. After watching that crazy game against Lou and the week prior, I feel like their defense can be gotten at.
Absolutely.
Right? They're definitely vulnerable in the back if you can catch them off guard.
They allowed 3 in the first half against Lou?
Yeah.
Only to come back with 3 of their own. Yeah. That was probably the craziest game of the season. And I just don't see another set of teams beating that. But we've got to go to break. And when we return, we're going to talk about Tampa Bay and what we might expect from them on the night. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricket and Jason Carey.
All right, back here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, talking about Tampa Bay Rowdies and their form over the last 5, not including, we can include it. Do you think it's appropriate to include the draw against Lou last night in the Prinks Tire?
I mean, whenever we do this, I always put the caveat that either all competitions or I'll say just in the league.
Well, we'll go all comp then, 3 wins and 2 draws in that time. That might feel a little disingenuous considering if you look at their league play, it's actually 1 loss and 1 draw. But nevertheless, they're now sitting with a total of 11 points earned out of their last 5 games. Not many teams able to talk about that in the regular season. Of course, now them getting knocked out of Prinks Tires Cup, the bigger storyline of the weekend as they fall to Lou in penalties. Jason, this is a team, 12 goals, like I said, in the last 5 matches. They've got the most clean sheets in the league, despite a leaky defense at times that we've seen over these last 5 games. But they have some of the highest XG in the league right now, averaging 1.89 or 1.89 XG. Ours, by the way, 1.59, second best in the league right now. They also have a 2.5 goals or points per game offering right now. This is not a team to mess around with in any way, shape, or form. They are on a positive plus 17 goal differential with those 41 points. There's a reason they're at the top of the tippity top of the tower, and it's going to be a test for Rhode Island on the weekend.
Yeah, I look at their league form and I'm trying to kind of carve through it, and I try and see, okay, well, this is a long week for them.
A very long week.
Is there any exhaustion? Right, they play there's Lou, and then they play 2 home games, and they also traveled to Orange County. Well, I did some digging into their league play so far, and there's been 2 instances so far this season already where they've had long weeks. One was just 3 straight wins, just routine stuff. The other one draw, 1 loss, 1 win. my favorite Thoroughgood song. But like, so this team at times has had hiccups, but for the most part, they've got a very good record. There's a reason they're top of the table there in the Eastern Conference.
I mean, in one hand, you can look at it. Yeah, they went through Lou City, then Orange County, where away in Orange County. And we remember Kano talking about the complaint of having a midweek where he had to anywhere where there was a midweek attached to travel across the country. That is one of the biggest journeys you have to make in this league. They go get it done 3-0. Like, they just hand Orange County their own behinds and demonstrate that the East is better than the West. Then they have to do it all again against Louisville. It doesn't work out, but they'd already beaten Louisville 2 times this season ahead of that. So, you know, it's like, it's this weird thing of where they went and played some of the toughest competition they possibly could, still continuing that trend going up against Rhode Island FC. We very much have to put our own club in those numbers. But to your point earlier about the other 2 times where they've faced long stretches of games, well, the other one, you know, I don't know if it was a fluke, but like, they played against the Charleston Battery midweek and got a draw. And then they played against Hartford Athletic away, or they were home. Hartford was away, where Hartford got the fluky kind of win on that. Hartford this year has been abysmal at their own stadium, but if you look at their away record, they're one of the best in the Eastern Conference. They're second only behind Tampa Bay. And there's a crazy stat about Tampa Bay's away versus home performance we'll talk about in a second. So like, this is a Tampa Bay team losing to a really good away form team. How does that break down for us then when we talk about the significance of this match? Like, I look at it, where do these cracks in the armor get taken care of and get taken advantage of?
Well, I mean, I think the cracks in their armor right now is from their defense, right? They're kind of struggling here in regards to availability, right? We have Archer, Schaefer, and Learman all injured. Nigro and Wyke missing huge chunks of time to injury, only recently rejoining the squad, requiring reinforcements on the back line for the Rowdies from 2 MLS loanies, one being Ethan Bartlow from Sporting KC, and Connor Antley returning from TBR on loan from DC United. Do you see this anyway making any difference to them?
I mean, Antley is a former Tampa Bay. He knows what success in Tampa Bay looks like. So as a Rowdy returning, and we saw him immediately make the start in the game, this midweek game against the Louisville in the Brinks Tire Cup. So you could say, yes, I don't know enough about Bartlow's game. Any player from Sporting Kansas City right now is kind of like damaged goods, in my opinion. They're not a very good team, especially if you're talking defensively. Well, actually, they're just not a good team at all.
Long have the days passed since Sporting KC was one of the better teams in the league. # not NLS podcast.
Where's Peter Vermees right now? Is he coaching in the championship?
Is Graham Zusi still right back?
I'd like to know if Graham Zusi still kicks the ball ever. But no, I mean, getting into it and talking about the defense, it is interesting to see Tampa Bay go out and focus on needing to get additional players. Like, they recognize, like you said, with all of those injuries, it seems more center back in nature, which is why it was weird. Antley was listed as the right wing or right center back defender. The formation said they played in a back 5. I didn't see that on the. It looked like they were playing more with a back 3, but he was tucked, or he wasn't tucked. He was pushed further out on that right side, and I think that that's kind of the thing, because if this team's really good at containing action in the middle, and then they start to see all these injuries start to stack up, I think that they have to go get those reinforcements. I think the adjustment, and we're going to see the impact of that on the night, is Learman. Learman was a late scratch the game at OCSC. So when we think about where can teams take advantage of that when it comes to Rhode Island FC, well, now you're looking at your left winger, and whether that's Utaro or Afonso, or even Quizera on flipping it back over, a player attacking that right side when there isn't a dedicated right wing back or a fullback. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the activity on the night. Again, if you're Connor Smith, the left side with Tampa Bay, their fullback on the left side has been playing there every single game of the season, and he's been very good. It's Ostrom. He's been doing very well for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So, I think there's big opportunities in that defensive line, but I think a lot of it's going to come on that right-sided orientation. Will these 2 loanees make any kind of impact on this game? I don't know. I mean, Max Schneider's been an experiment. He's typically a 6 or a CDM in some capacity for the Rowdies, and he had to he's done the Zach Haribo treatment of going and dropping in as a stopgap to stop the bleeding. I just don't know where that comes in. So then the question becomes, if
it's the right side, then is Utara going to be feasting going up against them?
I mean, I don't, or do they compensate and protect that side? I don't know. The question really then becomes, with this wounded back line that they have and these low knees, where's the rest of the depth factor in here? I said at the first segment, they have the depth, but like we're now talking about, what is it? It's 90, 180. It's 270 minutes in 7 days. Most of these players only played 70 minutes as far as their star power goes. But then you had like Pedro Dolabella and Nico Micheletto, I can't talk anymore today. Micheletto playing, which again, great players in their own right. They only played 15 to 30 minutes. The only player that I saw in that game that really went the distance was Cicerone, and he's older and he doesn't like playing against Rhode Island FC because we break him for the rest of the season when he does. So like, do we see Russell Cicerone not get a start now because of the fact that like they had all these minutes on their legs plus a cross-country travel locked up into all of it? I don't know where. Do you think the depth strikes stronger here than more than anything? Like, do we see alternates? Does Dom Cosciato start playing 4D chess on the night?
I don't know. I mean, so the thing about the Prince Tires Cup is, remember, those games do not go to extra time, right? They go straight to penalties. So that saves about 30 minutes on the legs of the players. So, like you said, with these subs coming in around the 70th, I mean, I think these, we've all seen these teams be able to manage and go through this. And we just talked about how.
Do you believe that a professional player should be able to play 70 minutes every 3 days and not cry about it? At least for 1 week?
I mean, for 1 week, potentially. I mean, we see players do it at the highest level. And I don't know if maybe that is because they have, space age recovery, like, that you've got that Premier League money, so they just cryo freeze them. But I don't see why they can't play 3 matches in at least, maybe not, 90 minutes, but 60, 70 minutes of like 100% in a week.
That's fine. I mean, it's all fair and dandy. I guess the only other thing then is like when we talk about this team, I listened to the Backheeled this league. They did a pretty long expose on Tampa Bay because it was focused on the Jägermeister Prince Tires Cup. And, one of the things that they said, and they were trying to get this message across, was that Tampa Bay seems to be in a sweet spot of they don't dominate games. They don't have these like overwhelming score lines a lot of the times, maybe minus that 5-4 comeback or 4-3 comeback. But the other one it was 5-4. See, I can't even, 9 goals in a game is just crazy. But they said that they don't necessarily dominate games, but they always remain in control of them. And that's the sweet spot that Tampa Bay lives in. What are your thoughts on that? Because for me, the only thing I see where Tampa Bay does something better than the rest of the league, it's their possession versus their press metrics. Like, they are a team that does press, but they don't press aggressively to strip you of the ball in your final third. Instead, it's a press to contain. They're not trying to win the ball immediately, right? Like, they just want to keep shape around you and put you into bad positions where you compromise yourself. And then in addition to that, with the possession, they'll keep the ball, but it's meaningful possession. It's not side to side. They're just as comfortable losing the ball, again, as long as that press keeps you pinned to where they want to be. That's the only thing I've seen from this team, from a hostile aggression where it's like they do this better than everyone else. What have you seen in watching them that would back up what Backheeled is saying?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, if you kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Like, statistically, RIFC have 55% possession. But then if Tampa's creating all of like the dangerous chances, then Tampa can win the game tactically. So having more possession there doesn't necessarily help, because like you said, they'll let you have the possession, but they'll push you into those uncomfortable like spots. And then the same vein, if we switch it up and say like, well, Tampa has 45% possession, but RIFC is constantly being pushed backwards, like that's not doing them any good, passing side to side. I mean, both of these outcomes, Dom Cosciato wants his team to be in, whether that's be like winning more or less possession. So if you're Kano, do you try and break the team down? Do you, like how do you approach this match?
Long live the long ball. I mean, honestly, I think I don't know, because Kano does like possession as long as it is with intent. I think he's seen a team that is less aggressive on like fouling and tackling when they can maintain a little bit more of their own tempo and pace by just retaining the ball. But he will also tell you that sometimes they have to suffer without the ball. And this is a team that does really well in said suffering. I think with the players we have up front, that if we can find chances, I don't think we're going to see as many shots on target as we've seen in the past. I think this might be a reduced game. In fact, if I go back to the original Tampa game, I think that one was also a smaller footprint in terms of shot production. So that just means they're going to be more clinical. Do we have the players that can get that done on the night? Absolutely. Will they show up? JJ Williams, we didn't air it because we got the wrong audio for the last week's show, but JJ said we can win any game. It just depends on what comes out of that locker room at game time. Sometimes we get this beast of a team, and sometimes we get a team that maybe isn't respecting the opponent as much. They all know how important it is to get the result against Tampa. They all know the circumstances and what's at stake against a team like Tampa beyond the 3 points. I think this is a team that's going to absolutely show up down in Florida and do some damage, but time will tell, and we'll have to figure that out. And we'll talk about all that and everything else storyline-wise when we return here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrickett and Jason Carey.
All right, Jason, I want to ask this question really quickly. Does the loss to Lou in Pens in a knockout tournament at Lang, does that hinder this team and see the cracks, and you start to see the fatigue, and maybe they take their foot off the pedal, or does that set them to like killer mode and they're out for blood on Saturday, even though we're not responsible for what happened?
I think they'll want to bounce back, but I also see this as a regression to the mean, right? They played each other very recently in that 5-4 thriller that we've talked about. So in that regards, it's like they used up all their goals to get that win. And so you see the pendulum swing the other way, right? When you play a team too many times, sometimes in the same span of time, there's some sort of comfortability. It almost feels like it's subconscious, where you're not going to see the same result happen again. So obviously they're going to want to get some quick turnaround here, but they've got a short week there. So I think RIFC is going to have a slight edge there on being fit, having a full week off.
So then you're saying this is the best possible moment, despite Tampa Bay's track record this year. This is the exact game, the exact date that RIFC wants to take on Tampa. They're at their fatigued level. They've just gone through the ringer with some really good teams. This is like, you couldn't predict the schedule wise, but now that it's here, you're just counting your blessings. This might be some of the luck that Connor Smith has been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to give them a full week of rest, at the end of the day, anything can happen, right? But you'd rather play an opponent who's most likely tired and beaten up, combined throw some injuries in there. Like you said, this is potentially a good time to play them. Maybe RAFC can kind of pull off an upset here, if you will.
This is payback for losing the Loudoun game to Weather earlier this season. Jason, RFC still the second highest team rated on FOTMob in the championship, only behind the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Make that make sense for listeners that go, how does the sixth place team in the Eastern Conference be the second best team according to stats on FOTMob?
Yeah, so underlying stats here, I mean, beyond the goals, which are fourth best in the Eastern Conference, FOTMob model considers chance creation, shots on targets, key passes, big chances, other attacking events, rather than just simply goals. So the thing is, RFC is doing all the right things. They're just not always getting the results that maybe we want. And you could say that, we are a contender for the cup based upon being, second FOTMob rating. More of those chances need to be converted into goals and changed into points, because no matter what the underlying stats say, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is the score.
So then if the clinicalness, the finishing doesn't change, but we still grind out wins, then what does that say? Because if the conversion is the concern, but we still end up winning games despite a poor conversion rate, like that's okay to have too, though, right?
Yeah, and I think this is why this team is the way they are. We've seen this the first 2, 3, now let's just even say 3 years, right? You start to get into the second half, and everything that Kano's been building upon starts to work and starts to make sense and starts to click.
The Matthew Corrigan effect, right?
Yeah, and so those those chances of those shots start to kind of fall and that luck starts to build because you, in essence, create your own luck by doing the right things.
Well, then looking beyond standings and beyond stats, does RIFC's away form versus Tampa Bay's home record and their home form factor into this game at all?
I think this is interesting statistical angle to take here for this matchup. Tampa's home form and RIFC's road form are kind of go to opposite directions, but not as dramatically as you might think. Looking into Saturday, Tampa's roughly 75% win rate in the league with about 2.5 points per game. RIFC on the road, 3-0-5 in league play, according to the latest USL record. So RIFC's won 3 of 7 road matches, but hasn't drawn 1. So in regards to the record here, I think that's interesting because, it's shown that, they can win away from Pawtucket. The problem has been consistency rather than an inability to perform on the road.
And I think to that point too, Tampa is one of the best teams in the league. But when you look at Tampa's record, and this is the caveat, this is the asterisk, Tampa Bay has dropped more points at All Lang than they have on the road themselves this year. So similar to how we were talking about with Hartford and how they've been road warriors this year. Oh, I can't believe I had to say that out loud. Tampa Bay is 7-3-0, no losses. They are undefeated on the road this year. So they've only dropped a total of 6 points on the road. But meanwhile, at home, they have 2 losses and 2 draws. So that combines for an additional, I can do math, don't worry, 11 points that they've dropped at home at All Lang. It's kind of one of those things where if you're looking for a silver lining, if a team is hungry enough, if a team is desperate enough, there's no reason to think that they can't get the damage done. And again, this team is exhausted. They're fatigued. There's no reason to think Rhode Island FC can't get that done. So then I'm going to ask you, is this the ultimate playoff test? Because when I look at this game and everything that matters ahead for it, is this game not kind of a precursor to what we should expect down the road, no matter how the bracket shapes up in the Eastern Conference at the end of the season?
Absolutely. I think we learned from our earlier matchup that RIFC can go toe-to-toe with the best and keep tying into what JJ Williams said. A lot of times it's who comes out of that locker room. And I think when the team knows that they're going up against a big team, a top team comes out of that locker room. But we've also seen that there's still some room from improvement in kind of getting to that ultimate pinnacle, being one of those top teams in the league. Our first meeting against the Rowdies was actually sandwiched between 2 losses. And sometimes we also know that this team responds, right? We're now kind of building form here. Can we keep that momentum going? Are we starting to become the well-oiled machine that we see later on in the season?
I think this is the ultimate measuring stick for Rhode Island. I mean, you look at it, we're all talking right now about earning that home playoff berth, right? Well, even if we take 4th, if Tampa Bay remains at the top, the whole league is going to run, or not the whole league, excuse me, the whole conference is going to run through All Lang by the end of that playoff. So we could get 2nd place and we could get 2 games at home at Central Bank Stadium. We still are going to have to go to All Lang. And so this is that one test. This is that one chance to really understand what is the mettle, what is the grit behind this team as they take this club on. I also think, and this might be interesting to you, it's interesting to me, you look at the performance results that we had in 2024 and 2025 in the playoffs. 2024, we lose to Colorado Springs in the final, right? What was the result we had against Colorado Springs in regular play that year?
3-1, I think.
But right? It was a loss.
Yeah.
I don't need the game. I don't need the number. It was a loss,
was...
right? We then go on to Charleston. We didn't lose against Charleston in Battery Park. It was a draw. So go to 2025. We didn't win in league play against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and then we went to lose against them inside that playoff run. There's something to be said about this team and being able to take that ammunition with them in that post-playoff run of saying, we've already been here. We know what you're going to throw at us, and we know what we can do to respond to that. It seems to go more admirably in their favor when they've seen results, especially in year against that team. So a result now will have big comeuppings to what will happen later in the end of the year when, again, we will see them in the Eastern Conference final potentially at the end of the season. So I think that's a really big point, and I don't even think it needs to be a win, Jason. I think a result as just 1 point will be critical this weekend. But does this fight need to be for 3 points and not just one then?
I think if they want to be a legitimate USL Cup contender, I think that they're kind of have to go for all 3 points. I think it's important that they, like you said, though, they can't go down there and lose, though, because it's not going to be the confidence or the experience they're going to want to take into the postseason.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I also think you can just play with your mindset of being, we're going to fight for all 3 points. And if all we get out of it is 1 point, that's nothing to tuck your head and be ashamed of, right? Like we've talked all season, the best teams are going to find ways to draw tough matches when they're not in their own home stadium. It's a short-term goal for a longer-term effort. And I think that that's what people have to recognize, is that it's going to be completely okay if we only see a draw on the weekend. But in the spirit of Rhode Island FC getting the win here, Jason, what are the key takeaways for you on how Rhode Island gets that 3-pointer?
Yeah, so this team here is the cream of the crop of the league, but they are not infallible, right? They've, like you said, they've given up 2 draws and 2 losses at home. They've shown that their defense can be gotten at, but the thing is, they've also shown that they have a lethal attack. RIFC cannot afford silly mistakes in the back. We need to play a very strong game in the back there to really give ourselves an opportunity, I think, to go out and score, because we know that this team will create chances. Are they going to convert all of them? Obviously not. You know, this could be a game where maybe they only have 10 chances as opposed to some of these like 20 shot games. So they're going to need to have their like shooting boots on, if you will, but they can't make silly mistakes in the back. It'll kill us.
Agreed. I mean, I kind of see this as the JJ Williams show myself. And it doesn't necessarily be like a goal has to be on to his name by the end of the match. I look at his harassment. I look at some of the times when JJ has been removed from the game, but in reality, it's all of his off-ball movement. It's him drawing defenders away. It's him challenging for aerials. It's even sometimes just some of his hold-up play as other runners come on. I don't know if JJ finds a way to score in this game, but it's going to be him harassing whoever that center back pairing is, or if they run a back 3. You know, like I said earlier, Max Schneider has been a substitute. They just brought in all these other center backs. There's going to be some lack of cohesion on that back line, and it won't last for many more games. This is the time where a player like JJ Williams is going to have to be attacking that in all the kind of ways that matter, even if it's not where the ball is necessarily at his feet. And then I think also, too, it's going to be transition. You know, Rhode Island is going to have to learn how to bend but not break in this game. They can't get frustrated. You know, you said a second ago about making a silly mistake. Well, some of that's going to come from when you get pinned. You start trying to take that creative, you know, pass where maybe this will cut through some lines, or you just are so pressured that like you do a silly giveaway. I think for Rhode Island at this point, it's learning to absorb Tampa. And then I do think it's transition ball, whether it's route 1 or it's collecting a recovery or an interception somewhere further up the pitch, and then going at speed and at pace. Again, going back to this defensive line, do not let them get into position. Don't let them find a compact shape. Let them find allies. Catch them when they are running back towards their own goal, and you should be able to find a way to score, if not just once, but possibly even twice, and get ahead in this game. If those goals can come first from Rhode Island, we had to chase in the Tampa Bay game. We got the recovery. We got the equalizer. Imagine if Rhode Island can get the goal first this time around at Al Lang. It could put them in a better position. It could put them in the driver's seat. But in that regard, too, they don't have to try to go and force that first goal. As long as they keep a clean sheet into the first half, they control. Again, they're not going to dominate, right? This Tampa Bay side. As long as they don't allow them to dictate terms on them, I think that they can find that first goal in the second half and then sneak away with 3 points. There's no reason to believe that that's not possible.
Absolutely. Looking ahead to the ref assignment here for the match. Head ref here is going to be Corbin May. Assistant refs are going to be Ben Rigel and Diego Lucio, with the fourth official being Stephen Perry.
I would talk more about fourth officials and their importance of football video review now after we saw what happened in those Prince Tires games. I didn't know that you could review a yellow and overturn a yellow into a red card there. Yeah, that was pretty chaotic in that San Antonio-Miami game.
Yeah, it's not exactly how I thought that was going to be.
I thought it was, if you got a red, let's make sure that's a red. There's a reason it's being tested, right? We gotta work out all the bugs and all the kinks in the system first. But interesting to see if that's what starts to happen in this league. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. But we'll see what kind of magic happens from these officials. And maybe Corbin May is just the 12th player for Tampa Bay, like we've seen in all these games lately. For your kickoff time for this match, don't forget this game is at 7:30 Eastern time. The official watch party is with Defiance 1636 remaining at the Guild in Pawtucket. If, of course, you're not going to the Island Roads Music Festival, the Guild is going to be the place to be. But if you are going to the Island Roads Festival, we'll see you there. And if you don't have tickets, get on your kayak, get in a boat, just sit out in the channel and have a good time and enjoy some reggae and island music. And we'll see you guys all this weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Hope y'all enjoy the game this weekend. Take care. Anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.